Wow. So the button actually bets nearly twice the pot on this flop, which doesn't work because so we've got a 3x open raise by T-A. I've never seen this player. It's a bit unorthodox nowadays, but it's okay. Flat call by flusu. Okay, seems fine. And everybody gets out of the way. This board is pretty good for both players, as in TA is going to obviously have every set, over pairs, flush draws, straight draws, you name it. And Flus is also going to have hands like good jacks, good nines, some pocket tens type of stuff and draws. So both guys get to be moderately aggressive on this board. And TA starts with a big bet, okay. Which means that Flus is not going to raise much because there's not as many hands he's interested in raising in anymore. Big bet again on the turn. I don't think Flusu has 8-6 or 10-8. So that doesn't really hurt MP. MP could definitely have him sometimes. Flusu could have 7s, but he called the near pots as bet. So he would at least fold sometimes for sure. He calls again. And the 5 is a really good card for Tara. Let's call him or her Tara. That's a really good card. Because if let's say Flusu had Jack 9, that's now been counterfeit. If he had pocket 5s, that's less likely now. If he, let's say, just called to, quote unquote, protect his range and wait for a safe run out, that's less likely now. So, unless Flusu has, let's say, ace 5 of spades or, something like that, but unlikely. So, really good card. I think Tara shouldn't really leave $77 behind. I think she should just go all in. I don't see a reason to lose value here. And Flusu, I mean, I assume he has mostly a jack here, so he's probably thinking, well, do I beat hands like king 10, king queen, flush draws, maybe something like an underpair. He calls. Okay, interesting. So Tara opens 10s, which is perfectly fine, but I don't like the c-bet too much, especially for that sizing. The turn bet is very, very light, and on the river, I mean, this is just too light. So she should just check out her hand on one street, preferably the flop, and, go from there. So she's probably afraid to check because she's been, run over a little bit in the past. Who knows why? But this is a bit of an overplay, or I mean, quite an overplay. And then Flusu, I would like to see him 3-bet Tara here. I mean, yeah, I would like to probably see a 3-bet most of the time. I mean, this indicates that this player may not be as strong as Flusu, so he should play more hands. So I'd like to see a 3-bet. Other than that, he's thinking, I don't block queen 10, I block no spades, I do block pocket kings. I'm just going to call. So that seems fine. I'll give Flusu an 8.5 out of 10. I'll give Tara a 3.5 out of 10. Sorry, Tara. I'm sure he or she is a good player, but I don't like this play. We've got Ancient Rage folding. We've got Denial Rupp. For a second, I thought it was Donald Trump, but obviously it isn't. He raised the 15, which is again a bit unorthodox. This this big raise, but okay. Flusu once again calls. He's going to be the hero in this hand. And we've got a very interesting flop in King 10-9 because I mean both players can have Queen Jack. Both players can have 2 pair. Obviously, the button is going to have the sets, but the big blind is probably going to 3-bet kings and 10s always. 9s probably often as well. Maybe not always. Wow. So the button actually bets nearly twice the pot on this flop, which doesn't work because Flusu is going to have Queen Jack offsuit here every single time. He's going to have Queen Jack suited here sometimes as well. So he can easily have 10 plus combinations of the nuts. So you cannot really get away with this. Now, if the board's like ace, king, deuce, and, in position as aces and kings and ace, king, and the big blind doesn't, you could do something like this because you're saying, hey, I can have the nuts and you can't, so fuck you, I'm going to put in a lot of money. But here you're basically saying, like, fuck you, I've got a lot of good hands, but hey, you do too. So then it doesn't really work. So I would like to see, I don't mind a big bet on this board, but nearly twice the pot is pushing it. So if I were Flusu, I'd think, well, this is probably just a very strong hand. And so he check raises. At this point, he's probably saying he's got the nuts or nothing. Because, I mean, what else do you want to raise? I don't think you can raise here with a hand like king 10 at all. And all in. So now Daniel is repping queen jack once again. Maybe he's bluffing with some kind of ace jack of hearts type of hand, which obviously has good equity. But I think Flus is raising Queen Jack here quite often. And indeed, they do both have Queen Jack. Queen Jack. Okay. Okay, so I don't like Flus's call pre-flop. I think he should 3-bet, but I don't mind his check raise. I don't mind his get-in. I'll give him an 8 out of 10. I'll give Dino a 5 out of 10. I mean, I like the open raise. I just don't like the sizing much, but it's okay. You know, you can play different strategies on the button. 3x is a reasonable one if you know what you're doing, but I don't really like just betting twice the pot, right? You can't just say, hey, I got the nuts to bet twice the pot, and I got, pocket jacks, and I bet half pot, right? You have to be a bit more consistent. You can't just bet according to what you've got. You need a bit of consistency. And then he shipped, which is, it's pretty obvious that he has the nuts, but, what are you going to do? I'll give him a 5 out of 10, as I said. All right. We see the same 3x raise that we did before from Daniel. Flusu 3-bets, a little bit larger than the usual, 9 big blinds, but that seems fine to me. If you believe that your opponent's calling too many 3-bets, with weaker hands, definitely fine. And so Daniel ends up 3-betting really, really large, which I don't really like. He should be 4-betting very aggressively because Flusu is going to 3-bet him very aggressively. So that part I really like. He should be 4-betting more often than he should be calling, for instance. So that part he's got down. But I think the sizing is too large. So Flusu's, there's quite a bit of money to go after. There's already 222 euros and 50 cents to go after. So that's like, half a Romanian rent to go after. That's like one rent in like Myanmar, I guess. So there's a lot of money to go after. So I would shovel in quite often if I were Flusu. Calling is not as attractive because you have to call 115 more, right? So if Hadinho made it, let's say like 125, which is a more common sizing, your odds on the call are a bit better, so that becomes a bit more attractive. But shoving is a bit less attractive because there's now 8 fewer big blinds in the pot. So I'm expecting a shove by Flusu quite often. Unless he believes that Daniel is out of line and he wants to trap him, especially when they hand like kings or aces. Okay. Oh, right. Interesting. Back doors. Front doors. No bueno. Alright, so Flusu 3-bets and got it in. I like the play. I did say kings could be a good trap under the right circumstances. But I don't know if the circumstances are right because I don't know anything about him in the position other than how he played Queen Jack in the previous hand. So I like the shove with kings. I think it's the best play. I also don't mind the fact that he sized up a little bit. So I'll give Flusu a 9.5 out of 10. I like the open raise by Daniel. I like the fact that he's 4-betting aggressively, but I don't like it. I don't want him to be as aggressive as he was right now, calling it off with pocket fives, hoping to be slightly ahead of ace king. Yes, you're ahead of ace king, absolutely, but you're way behind against hands like kings, queens, aces, etc. So yeah, this is just too loose. I'll give him and also you're a little bit deeper, which hurts you even more. So I'll give him a 3 out of 10. So pretty aggressive play. I'll give him a 9.5 for hearts for sure. So we've got Fish 666 raising, and I'm rooting for him because of his cute dog avatar. And we've got Wentian 3-betting to 8 big blinds. Yeah, going 7.5 to 8 big blinds seems fine to me. Nothing wrong with that. And Fish with Triple H calls. And we've got an interesting board. We've got 8-5-4. This is a better board for the middle position player. I think it's more likely that he has 8s, 5s, 4s, 5, 4, 6, 7. Wentian can definitely have some of these hands, but at a lower frequency. So Fish is doing quite well when it comes to those hands. Obviously, Wentian's going to have aces and kings, and Fish is not going to have any of those. Or at least he shouldn't have any of them. You never know. So Wentian bets half pot, okay. Not the worst bet size I've ever seen by any means. And Fish now check raises around 3x and about a Snickers. So he's saying, hey, buddy, I've got a set, I've got 2 pair, I've got maybe like 8-7, maybe I've got an overpair sometimes, and a couple of bluffs, right? So let's see what Wentian does. So Wentian basically min raises. Actually, like he raises twice Fish's bet. He didn't raise the minimum. Um, I mean, it looks to me like he's just got it and he's trying to bait Fish into going all in. But he's hoping that Fish might just have a hand like tens and he would have folded to a shove, but he'll call the min raise, something like that. And then Fish goes all in, saying, "Fuck this min raise. I got a set. I got two pair. I got a straight. I want to get all the money in." Ah, what a cooler. That's gross. Okay, so Fish called the 300 forwards, which is a little bit loose. Usually should be folding, but calling sometimes makes sense. And I don't mind the check raise at all. And once he faces this click back, I'll be quite scared to be honest, but I think you're probably going to get it in. So I'll give Fish a 7 out of 10. It's a bit loose pre-flop, but the rest seems fine. Went in 3-bet 8, which is also quite loose. Your hand is mostly going to be a flat call pre-flop, but sometimes 3-betting makes sense, especially if you're targeting certain players. He bets half pot on the flop, which is alright, and then I would like to see him just call this check raise. The issue is with pocket eights. I mean, you have a great hand in top set, but Fish might just be check raising here with an 8, right? So it's more likely that he's bluffing. So I wouldn't mind if he's slow play. Generally, when you got top set, slow play makes more sense. Now, if you believe that Fish is just never bluffing, he just always has 5s and 4s here, then getting it in is really not that bad, and avoiding the 7 turn. But if you think he's a bit more capable, then actually just calling actually makes sense. So I'll give him a 6 out of 10. So by no means a bad play, although calling against a capable player would have been cool, right? Because you cannot only call the flop with 7, 8, and maybe like Jack sometimes. You also need hands like aces to slow play sometimes. You need a hand like this in order to not get run over on later streets. So by no means a bad play, but I think I would have played it a little bit differently. Big shout out to Big Blind Bets. I mean, he won $1.6 million in a tournament last year. He's won a lot of money in his life. He's probably pretty rich, yet he's still playing 5-10. So that shows a lot of humility and dedication. So definitely, respect that. Also got a cool Elon Musk avatar. All right, so Eliu Exa is a guy who actually played 10K for a while. He was kind of a funny guy. But now he's playing 1K. So he opens it to 1-2x, which seems okay. And Big Blind Bets makes it 10.5. I would have gone a tiny bit bigger, but sure, seems okay. And we've got this 8-4-3 flop, which is a great flop for Big Blind Bets. As in, the flop is not necessarily great, but if you're saying, hey, I've got mostly an overpair, I mean, there's nothing scary happening. Pocket eights are a bit of a worry, of course. I mean, because Ilua, whatever his name is, can have that, but he's not gonna have 3s and 4s very often. So if Big Blind bets his hand like Jack, he's happily getting some money in, and he bets half pot. All right. The 9 is a concern because if Ilua has pocket eights, he definitely has pocket 9s. So Big Blind bets has to be a bit more concerned now, but it's still not a huge deal. And he checks. Ilua bets a bit on the bigger side. I would prefer a slightly smaller bet than that, but okay, he does bet. And Big Blind bets check raises all in. Okay. Interesting. So, 3-bet and a call seems absolutely fine. Bet and a call seems absolutely fine. On the turn, Big Blind bets decided to check here with aces, trapping. I really like that play. I don't mind the Lou has bet here, but again, it's a bit loose to bet and bet that much, and also to call the check raise. And Big Blind Bets is probably thinking, well, my opponent bets so big, I don't think he's bluffing very often. I'm just gonna get the money in because I don't want to see him, check back on a king, for instance, which he would have. So, check calling in theory also would be a cool play, but Big Blind Bets was probably thinking, well, when the pot's so big already, I just want to get the money in, which seems fine. I'll give Big Blind Bets a 9.5 out of 10. I'll give Aloha a 5 out of 10.